I swear that chandelier can land on you, and it feels like it should land on you, especially since your body is so wide as a wolf. Like by wide I mean long. It really should land on the muzzle or whatever, the snout of the wolf, but it doesn't. I'm not complaining, it just seems like it's not as easy to get crushed by it as it could be. Which is good because you need to stand in the center of it in order to progress. These Stalfos work exactly like the ones in Link to the Past. You just defeat them and then bomb them. Of course, they're even easier because it's better to, like, they can actually be attacked by bombs before they crumble. So, just use 2 bombs on them. Better yet, just use the bomb arrows on them. It's good that they give you bombs, just in case you don't have them. Like, a lot of the times, the dungeons will give you bombs or arrows, anticipating that you might not have them when you need them. So that's good. But occasionally it can mean that you waste money buying them, and then they just hand them to you. Which was especially glaring for me in the water dungeon, when I spent money buying certain bombs, and then they just hand me them in chests early in the dungeon. So I guess this scent trail is supposed to be what tells you which torches you have to light. Like, lighting all the torches doesn't actually do anything, which I'm going to show off later. In the next dungeon, there's actually a way to get onto the roof of it. After destroying the enemy blocking the way to the big key, you go up onto the spiral walkway's rail. Take out Link's boomerang and lock onto the roof of the dungeon. Let it go, and you can actually jump strike over, and then you'll be walking on top of the roof of the dungeon. It's really annoying fighting this boss because obviously you have no way of knowing which one is the real one. And you'd think that doing this attack would help, but the field is so tiny that it doesn't really help. It doesn't encapsulate every single one at once. So you can't just target the real one and then immediately jump to him and attack him. You can target any of them, even the ones that aren't real. There's no way to tell which one's real until the very split second when the real one becomes vulnerable, and then you have to instantly attack it. It's not like the camera locks onto the real one. You have to keep constantly spinning the camera around as they move around you in a circle. It's kind of dizzying. A much more interesting glitch is the map glitch, which disables loading triggers, basically. There's actually multiple different ways to do it. Like, you can press D-pad right and Z at the same time, then warp. Or you can try to take out a potion interrupting a warp. Like, you can choose to warp, and then you can mash a button that a red potion is equipped to, and you might be able to drink the potion, interrupting the warp. Or you could place yourself next to something that you can howl at, and try to warp, and then just mash the A button, and hopefully you'll howl instead of warping. That disables all the loading triggers, causing the map glitch. After you use the map glitch, do not attempt to get off the horse while floating in the air, because you'll fall endlessly and never die. Because if Link dies at all, the game will not be able to exit the game over screen. Like, if you run out of hearts. And if you fall into a pit, then you'll be constantly falling into a void forever, because there's no loading triggers. Jump slashing, like, since water bodies extend downwards infinitely in this game, falling into a void and jump slashing actually lets you reach normally inaccessible water bodies. Because you think that you're too below them to swim over to them, but actually you could just swim under the ground and get to them just fine. The same effect can be done with some cutscene triggers, because cutscene triggers can extend downwards infinitely. This allows you to fight King Bubblen in the desert early. Like, I presume you just fall into a void, and then you're way below him, but somehow you just get teleported above him. Actually, that reminds me of like swimming, like using a Link Can Swim Forever code in Wind Waker to get to Forsaken Fortress way early, like the second phase of it way early. And even though you're swimming around like Phantom Ganon, like you can swim underneath the ground, and the cutscene trigger for him will still be hit, and so you'll be warped onto the floor where he's going to greet you. So that happened to Wind Waker too. So, with the map glitch, if you don't call Epona and try to keep going to another area, you'll fall through the ground eventually and need to restart the game as you keep moving around in the overworld. Cause, like, obviously the Bullfield is the biggest area where you don't have to worry about loading triggers, but if you do it, like, in a narrow tunnel, then you're pretty much going to need to call Epona right away. If you go into a door after using the map glitch, it will actually shrink Link's hitbox and he'll be able to roll up certain walls and go through certain things. It's the storage glitch from Wind Waker all over again. Unfortunately, rolling up steep slopes in this game has no practical use. So that's disappointing. But yeah, the map glitch can, like, it can get you to Snow Peak early, so in general it's a pretty cool glitch. This area is annoying because, like, sometimes there's dickish spikes that show up and prevent you from progressing immediately to a chest. And so you have to take the long way around. Like, you have to go into a hole in the wall and just take a path. Like, you might not necessarily see that other hole, so you might not know to go in there in the first place. Like, it's weird, like, you look into there, and you don't actually see a claw shot trigger thingy. Like, there's clearly a hole in that fence, but it makes you think that... See, I guess the thing is that the fence actually gets moved around, and only then does the hole serve you. There's also something called a nighttime music glitch in this game. Link has to find an enemy in Hyrule Field when it's close to nighttime, but before the daytime to nighttime transition music can occur. He must then get close to it, however, he must not kill it. Keep it near you until night, and the regular daytime enemy music should be playing instead of the typical enemy near music. Now, if you get away from the enemy or kill it, the special enemy music will stop, and the night music will play. The same applies when the time goes from night to day. The normal enemy music plays even in the daytime. Yeah, this is the annoying spike maze that I was talking about in the previous part. It's pure trial and error. How are you supposed to know, like, well, actually there are ridges in the floor that tell you where the spikes are going to show up. Like, the previous time the spikes rose out of the ground, you couldn't see where they were going to be at all. But the thing is that when the ridges are actually under the sand, then you won't be able to see them at all. It's so annoying how you can't pull it back. Like once it starts going in, like once it starts pushing in, you can't pull it at all. You can't pull it until it stops moving. It just feels wrong to me. And like, if these things, this is a big problem with this. This is a big problem with that mechanic. If these things grab onto you, like, you can't afford to waste any time. Or at least you don't feel like you can afford to waste any time. So you might feel like you should immediately try to pull this again. Because, and here, it happened again. And of course, if she decides to target an enemy and you lunge towards it, like you're trying to do the spin attack to get all those rats off you, but you can't because the spin attack for the wolf is also the target attack, and you might target something we don't want to. It feels a lot harder to do a quick spin as a wolf. And these cockroaches basically have the exact same slow down effect, only they're also a problem for Link. Well, Link can... I think Link can get slowed down by the spirit rats too. So what are the spirit rats supposed to be? Are they supposed to be the ghosts of rats? If so, why haven't we seen any in the sewers? There were plenty of rats there. I'm sure plenty of rats would have died there. But yeah, this dungeon is a strange combination of a desert dungeon and an undead dungeon. Like, by undead dungeon, I'm thinking of, like, the crypt in Minish Cap. That was basically a mini dungeon. It had stealthos and stuff in it. I think this is comparable to the Spirit Temple in Ocarina of Time. I think there were a lot of undead creatures in that too, but I never played it. All I really remember about the Spirit Temple is that I liked its theme a lot. I also really liked the theme of the Water Temple, but it's not nearly as memorable as the Spirit Temple theme. It's basically what you'd expect desert dungeon music to sound like. Honestly, I can't even remember what Arbiter's Grounds sounds like. Like, a lot of music in this game, when it comes to dungeons, I can't remember what it sounds like. Although I can remember the theme of Goron Mines and Snow Peak Dungeon just fine. And that's because, for some reason, they decided to make the Lava Dungeon music a remix of the Ice Dungeon music. And it's pretty noticeable once you notice it. It's a strange choice. This is pretty annoying. Why do you have to be a human to activate this cutscene? Why do you have to cut a rope to activate the cutscene? It feels arbitrary. But yeah, like I mentioned a lot earlier, if I remember it right, like, it can only attack you when you're able to see it. So, if it tries to attack you with a sword, and then you turn off your sense vision, then you'll teleport out of the way. It's a strange quirk in the game design. Attacking it as the wolf allows you to actually attack it as human Link. There are a lot of huge problems with this boss that drag it out to a ridiculous extent. For one, it's very difficult to hit a moving target with the bow. It's not helped by the fact that the targeting system is extremely short-ranged, so you'll want to just simply target it with the bow and then hit it, but you won't be close enough to it, and it'll be hovering too high above the ground. You try to target it with your charge attack, and you can't. Even though you can target foes that are flying above you and on the ground just fine. And the annoying thing is, it feels like the bow is necessary to beat this, which is why it really screams bad design that there's no arrows anywhere. There's no jars in this arena that have arrows in it just in case you run out. Like, I feel like bomb arrows are the best way to deal with this guy, but they don't give you enough arrows. The only way that you can get a bigger quiver is to beat a minigame that you can only beat after getting a dungeon item that's really late into the game. And by that point, you don't need a big quiver anymore. So it just screams bad design. Like, at least in Wind Waker, almost any time in the game that you wanted, you could just go to a fairy fountain and there's the quiver. There's the quiver upgrade. But in this game, like, it just doesn't seem like this boss in general is not very fun. It drags itself out way too long. It's repetitive. It's hard to hit it because it's always spinning around, and it spins around in a circle and makes you dizzy as you constantly have to move the camera around. And like, it's spinning around you, but it's not close enough to you that you can attack it. There's actually a way to get out of bounds in Orden. Go to the spot in Orden Village with Link's house, and then go to the left side of the fence that leads to Orden Village. Do a spin attack to cut all the grass, and go into a small corner between the edge of a small cliff and the fence. Place a bomb behind Link, and charge for a jump strike. Don't release the jump strike until the bomb starts flashing red really fast. Link should jump strike and nearly get on the cliff. Then the bomb should explode, helping Link bomb boost and grab onto the side of the cliff and climb up on top of it. If there's an invisible wall blocking Link from getting out of bounds once he gets off the cliff, then do another jump strike and Link should go to a spot where he can move freely out of bounds. So basically you can get on top of the grassy cliff that surrounds Link's house and just walk around it. Link should only use the other way if he doesn't want to waste bombs or health. It involves the boomerang and the jump strike. Some spots on the ground you'll fall through because they weren't ever programmed to be walked on. So what you can do is that you can use the claw shot on the ground to tell if it's solid or not. If it is solid, then the claw shot will be stopped by the ground. A similar method can be done to determine if the ground is solid and like when you're walking around in the actual Hyrule field in Wind Waker. Another really infamous glitch is the Postman glitch. And this is infamous because of how creepily it freezes the game. Basically, leave Kakariko Village when the postman has a letter for you. Go north along the Rock Canyon. Travel along the east wall until Link gets to an area where he can slowly walk off the floor and grab onto the edge. While hanging onto the edge, keep moving right. The thing is that the postman is programmed to always run in a straight line towards Link, but because of where Link is positioned, he'll fall off the edge of the cliff. But the game gets really confused because it's not ever supposed to happen, and that just causes the postman to take forever to get to Link. After a while, he will give Link the letter when he hits the bottom of the cliff, which is weird because he fell into a bottomless pit. So by definition, it really shouldn't have a bottom. Most likely the system will crash from this, and it's pretty easy to tell why. If it doesn't crash, there are many odd sub-glitches from this. They include the screen staying at the bottom of the bottomless pit, and the postman music playing until there's finally a text box on the screen. The text will move very slowly, as if there's a huge amount of lag for no reason. And after the A button is pressed, it'll take a while for the text to react to it. His voice when he says his last line is unchanged though, and after he runs off, the game will actually go on as if the horrifying glitch never happened.